Despicable Me 4, like I said, is probably the worst kids movie that's come out in a very long time. This series started off really great. This was kind of how Illumination got their big break, I would say, back at what, almost like a decade ago now. You know, they started with the first one and they had the second one, and then I think they pumped out a Minions movie, third one, another Minions movie, now this one. So it's pretty much six movies in the making. And the series is just it's dreadful. It's not entertaining as an adult. When I go to a kids movie, I understand in my head I am not the audience. I'm not the audience this movie is made for. But like I said, whenever I reviewed Inside Out 2, every good kids movie should also be appealing to adults because the adults are usually the ones I would assume, I don't know how the kids would get there otherwise, but they're the ones taking the kids to the movie. So the adults should be able to find something to pull from that. And Inside Out 2 was a great example of something that you could relate to, but your kids could also draw from, and it was made for the kids, but it was intriguing. This is not like that at all. There wasn't a big lesson. There wasn't anything memorable. I don't even know. I just saw the movie. Like it's three something. I saw no. It's like it's 4:30 right now. I saw the movie at like 2 o'clock. So I literally just saw the movie. I could not tell you what the villain's name is right now. I don't actually know his name. They are just using more throwaway villains than the Marvel franchise does. You know when you walk into a Despicable Me movie that Gru is going to beat the villain and it's going to be a one-off villain. Like that's all it's going to be. And it was just awful. This was worse than Kung Fu Panda 4. And that's saying a lot because Kung Fu Panda 4 sucked. But even in this movie, they overdo the same jokes. It's a lot of minion dribble and drabble that's just nonsense. So they filled, I'd say probably 35 minutes of the movie was just the minions. And they don't speak any English, it's just jumbled nonsense. And they just run into stuff. It's very crude humor. It's fart jokes, sodas blown up in faces. It's almost like comic book. Like the New York Times, did they even do that? Like if your grandpa had like an old newspaper and there was comics in it, that is Minions humor. It's not anything funny or entertaining. And it's so overdone by movie 6 at this point that even the kids that were in the theater with me were not laughing. I heard maybe two laughs the entire movie. Keep in mind, this was an hour and 36 minutes. 35 ish, we'll say like pretty much a third of it was just the minions. That's how little plot there was in this movie. They didn't even know what direction they wanted to go with, and it was predictable. There wasn't a moment that you're like, I wonder what's gonna happen next. No, I could have paused it and been like, hey, what do you think's gonna happen next? And we could all write on a piece of paper, boom, 100 points. We're all getting paid. It was so boring and so entertaining. And when I tell you there was fart jokes, even with Agnes, I think is the littlest one's name. She has a pet goat. She's like, "Oh, sit," and the goat takes a shit. Like it just like craps on the floor, and that's funny when I'm saying it, but no one laughed. Like not even the kids laughed. It was just like, okay, cool. It was just dreadful. It missed its mark. It wasn't fun. And like I said, this is turning into the Fast and the Furious of animation. They could have stopped at the second one. There was no reason to make a third. There was no reason to make this fourth one. They need to stop. They have a good enough studio at this point that they don't need to depend on the minions to carry their studio. I honestly can't think of a positive thing throughout this entire movie. Even the characters are just watered down. Like there was one good scene where Gru is his supervillain self from the first movie. Other than that, they were relying on just gimmicks and stuff and random characters. They put in another throwaway character. Like they had a new neighbor and the neighbor had a daughter and she wanted to be a villain. And so they like threw her in. And then they just tried to like rip off of Shrek and end the movie with a musical number. Like they randomly, the villain he's fought the entire movie he has a musical number with, and then end credits afterwards. Like, come on, guys. It was lazy. It was dull. It was boring. This movie was a 2 out of 10 at best, and I'm only giving it a 2 because the animation was crisp and clean. But it's an animation studio, so that's almost just like a freebie. It was trash. You don't need to see this movie. If you do wind up seeing it, please let me know. But I'm really glad there's no kids movies coming out for a while. The only trailer that looked even remotely appealing is there's this kids movie that's not animated that has the actor from Shazam, and he's a guy with a magic crayon that can like make stuff. That looks interesting. It reminds me of the movie If that I like recently saw. So that will be fun, but everything else is just so garbage. Moana 2 will be fine. Don't forget to subscribe, and yeah, that's all I got for today. If you do like the video, please give a thumbs up. I don't really know if it does much, but I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.